How did Bush's brain Karl Rove orchestrate a takeover of the Alabama Supreme Court in the 1990s? How did that end up resulting in a Supreme Court that granted sovereign immunity from lawsuits to private for-profit hospitals owned by religious institutions? I answer those questions in depth in the story that goes with this video, but you can hear Alabama Democratic Party Chairman Mark Kennedy tell his side of the story here.
But he came to Alabama at the invitation of the Alabama Business Council, Bill Canary, whose wife would later become the U.S. attorney who prosecuted Don Siegelman, and ran the campaigns of two candidates, primarily in the for the Supreme Court: Perry Hooper, who became Chief Justice, and Harold C., who ran against me. Karl Rove is an expert at turning what you believe to be your strongest suit into being your worst nightmare, kind of like the Swift Boat ads.
Swift Boat.
In my case, in the race, Sonny Hornsby and I both consistently led throughout the early months of that election. Ultimately, Sonny Hornsby was defeated after the race was contested, but I won by a slim margin. I was chairman of the Children's Trust Fund, have always been, since I was a juvenile court judge, a real advocate for children. I started judging when I was 26 years old. And when I went on the bench, I really thought, I'm not here just to push papers, I'm really here to affect better outcomes for kids. And so I became really active because I realized that oftentimes by the time kids reached the system, there was nothing I could do for them. So I sought out ways that I could work as a volunteer in promoting the concept of prevention. If I can keep a kid out of my court, then he will have a better chance of making something of himself. So I began working with agencies, became chairman of the Children's Trust Fund in Alabama, became president of a national child abuse prevention agency, and really had built up a record of service as a volunteer. I used that as one of the reasons that I thought I was qualified for the court.
What did he do, turn you into a liberal activist?
He actually turned me into a pedophile.
Oh.
Started a whisper campaign through Harold C., who was a professor at the University of Alabama in the law school. And they started a whisper campaign about me at the law school, and then it traveled throughout all the state about the fact that he took what I thought, because every ad I had me holding hands with children. And he took that and began spreading these vicious rumors about me and my family. In fact, The Atlantic wrote an article about it, an article by the name of Josh Gray.
I remember that.
Thankfully, it didn't work. And I decided, though, after that experience, which was probably harder on my two sons than it was me, my wife had grown up in rock and roll politics, being the child of the Wallaces, but I don't think she had ever witnessed anything like this, where it was her husband and not her daddy that was, for some reason, for her was different. Right. And I'd made a commitment then that I'm not going to run for re-election. If this is what being a judge is all about, where I thought it was about honor and dignity and qualifications. And ultimately, Harold C. came on the court in 2006 when he beat an incumbent member of the Supreme Court. By the time that I left, all of the judges that I had served with were gone and retired. Ralph Cook, the only African American on the court at that time, ran again, and he was defeated in 2000. I retired.
Listen to Joanne Ellison Shiver tell the story of how a Baptist hospital killed her mother with a staph infection and covered it up.
Your sister had a lawsuit because your mom died in Medical Center East, and the lawsuit claimed negligence, I'm assuming?
Right.
And the jury ruled in
our
your
favor.
And then you appealed it to the Alabama Supreme Court, and they overturned the case.
Right.
They threw the case out.
Right.
Did they say why they threw it out? Was the layman's reason why?
No.
They didn't say?
No.
Well, just tell us the story from the beginning, what happened.
Well, my mother had fallen and my sister had taken her to Baptist East, and she complained of a sore throat too. And they did a cuff on her throat, and we never heard from them any kind of way, letter, mail, sheriff, whatever they're supposed to do. And anyway, that my mother had to go back to the hospital about a month or so later, and the lady told her she had the deadly staph. And she had had it when she was at the hospital, and they never let us know, and my mother died.
Well, that's sad. So your sister, tell us about your sister, the one that why she filed the lawsuit or whatever?
Because it was proven that they were negligent and not letting us know because they have to let you know by sheriff, phone, something.
Right.
And they never let us know, and it went on, and Mom had to return back to the hospital.
Why do you think they did that? Do you think they were just trying
They
to...
said she slipped through the crack.
They were trying to avoid liability.
Right.
Okay.
They said she just fell through the cracks.
And now because of the law in Alabama, you're saying that this hospital claims they are not responsible for this because they're connected to the University of Alabama system.
Right.
They've now been given the same exemption as a state university or a state agency.
Right.
Against, you can't even sue them.
Right.
That's what they're saying.
Right.
As far as you know, is this the only hospital that has this?
Well, there's a Baptist in Prattville, Baptist South, Baptist East, UAB. None of them's responsible for anything they do anymore.
So the Baptist hospitals.
Right.
And the jury ruled in your favor.
Right.
They looked at the evidence.
Right.
And they said clearly they were negligent and they should have to pay. And then it was appealed to the Alabama Supreme Court and they just threw it out.
Right.
Do you think you know why?
I don't know. I'd hate to say follow the money, but I'm beginning to wonder.
Right. And did you follow the cases back in the last few years over the politicization of justice in this country?
No.
You didn't?
Mm-mm.
So it doesn't occur to you that politics has something to do
Oh,
with,
definitely, definitely.
you know, the makeup of the court right now?
Right.
Can you talk about that? Have you read stories about that or you know about that?
I know some, you know.
Well, it's a totally Republican court.
Definitely.
You know, let's just tell it like it is.
Right.
And they're basically put there with the money from big corporations and insurance companies and so forth.
Oh, definitely.
And so, why should it, you know, to the average person in Alabama right now that can't get justice in the court system. I mean, you can't sue an insurance company. You might win in front of a jury where these things are supposed to be decided, but the courts are totally skewed toward this corporate Republican point of view, and they're just not going to let average people win. There is no justice.
Right.
Is that how you feel?
That's exactly how I feel.
And what do you think? But you're here talking today, so maybe you still expect somehow to get some kind of justice.
I hope, yes, I hope they'll look over this again and know that that's very wrong for the people of Alabama and all the states that's going to follow. I mean, you know, we're reliable for what we do. Shouldn't they be reliable for what they do?
You loved your mom, didn't you?
Very much.
And it was sad when she died, I guess.
Yes.
Read how the state Supreme Court ruled in that case and how the University of Alabama and the secretive conservative Federalist Society play a role in this saga. This case is a prime example of how money influences politics in ways that destroy the rights of citizens. Legal experts say it's a prime example of out-of-control activist conservative judges of an extreme nature covering up for big corporations that got them elected to the bench with their deep pockets, thanks to Karl Rove.